There's a question from Elizabeth Thompson real quick right before we get started. Quick question about the new bibliographic record note. Is this supposed to show in the record area in the staff catalog? There is a new tab that is included in the staff catalog that's called bibliographic record notes, and that's where it shows. Mm-hmm. Oh, that reminds me, that was the counter that I wanted to put in that line.
Yeah, we didn't implement that, so we've disabled that tab.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. I was looking for my testing notes because there was a reason, and I don't now recall what it was, and I couldn't find my testing notes.
Elizabeth, that's your point there, but how do we know there's a note? It's a very good question. And I had meant to actually put in a Launchpad ticket, and I put in a different Launchpad ticket to have a counter included on there. So if there are notes, then there would be like a numeric count of how many notes have been added to that record. So I'll do that actually right now. So thanks for that little reminder. And then I'll put the Launchpad ticket in here. I mean, yeah, otherwise, unless you're just clicking through but for me, I'm not going to look at it unless I have some indication that I should.
Well, and I think, too, just putting a note on the bib record, it is not extremely useful if it doesn't somehow trigger an email to someone that you've added that note, depending on what the note is.
Yeah, as I say, for our consortium, it would be, especially we have certain catalogers that are working really diligently in the 500, and but you know, catalogers have differing opinions on certain things, and so we have had instances where somebody spent a lot of time maybe doing a formatted summary, and somebody went back in and changed all their work. Not because there was anything wrong with it, but just because they had a different philosophy on it. And so this will let them say, hey, we did this work, please don't change that. Also, when people are adding alternate subject headings that may not be authorized Library of Congress, but they may be a locally and completely within our procedures, a local heading that can be added, then to have that in there, don't remove it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good use case is, you know, I've made these edits. If you overlay, please make sure you add this, this, and this field back. But if you're, for example, one of the ways that we had envisioned these notes when we were originally talking about it, Jason and I, were to say, hey, you need to fix this record kind of note. Which is only useful if you can email that person. Now
that actually, you saying that would be a great extension of this. If it's kind of, you can imagine. I'm going to get started. As you can imagine, it's kind of convoluted in the way that it would have to work. So Emerald, Equinox, Mobius, they're our sponsors. Yay, thank you. It's been a great conference. And now Jennifer Weston and Elaine Hardy are going to lead the cataloging interest group. I'm going to stop the screen share and mute myself and turn off my camera. If anybody wants to be promoted so that you can talk, just click a button somewhere that I can't see because I've already done that. I think it's in the upper right-hand corner of your little screen. And then we'll do that.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to our annual cataloging interest group meeting. Where you can see the agenda for today, and there's a link to various links that'll be on there to the cataloging wiki, basically, and then different parts of it. I'm Elaine Hardy. I'm the Pines and Collaborative Projects Manager for Pines, Georgia Public Library Service. And Jennifer, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Weston, Product and Education Specialist here at Equinox. Glad to be here with you today.
Yeah. I am looking forward to hopefully next year, knock on all kind of wood, cross his fingers and toes, that we will be live.
Yes.
So we can see each other again. But for this, for the in-person conference, we always working group, I always open it up to the floor first. So I'd like to do that now. If you have any questions, discussions, items that you'd like to talk about, concerns, I do ask that it, not totally be a gripe festival. That we, Jennifer.
She'll pop back in.
Okay. To kind of be.
I had a coughing fit. I'm sorry.
Okay. I understand that. That we kind of keep it positive, even as we might complain about something. So if anybody would like to start.
As we are going, I will say that there is a tentative, there will be a tentative soft announcement about an in-person conference that will take place somewhere in New England, but I don't want to give too much information before the tentative announcement comes out, but it will be towards the end of April 2023.
That's really good because as of now, I'm going to be retiring June 30th, 2023. So
I was hoping you ever had a poll about that, Elaine.
But so I was hoping that it would be before that next year, prior to. Although I would be willing to have adjusted that date a little bit so that I could attend. Kate?
Yeah, I just wanted to pop in and say the session this morning where they introduced 3.8 and 3.9 was super cool. And if you catalogers didn't catch it, we are on 3.8 right now. And if you're not on 3.8 yet, come on over. It's got some really cool cataloging things on it. I can't even, 3.9 is going to be even better. So I think it's looking up for us catalogers. I think, we're pretty active in trying to get Evergreen to work the way we want it to, and I think it's really coming to pass for us. So get excited if you're not on 3.8 or above yet, because it's good stuff.
I would agree with that. I think there are some bugs, but I think that we're definitely going in the right direction, and it's good to see some major changes, upgrades up to the cataloging interface. Yeah,
and I'm willing to live with some bugs. There's always going to be bugs, but you're definitely right. We're moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. I think Jennifer says they're testing 3.9, which we have not tested yet. It would be next year before we would move to 3.9. But I think that the editor bugs, we have found we can work around them. So they're not showstoppers for us. And they did, I think he's got a fix in for the shelving location issue, visibility of shelving locations. I'd have to verify that though. I don't do a lot of cataloging anymore. I do mainly database cleanup training and things like that. So I sometimes forget what bug fixes we have applied and which ones we haven't. I was excited to see that manage actions menu as well, because we don't use booking, so I could just take those totally out of my things. asking about, you could put in a Launchpad ticket about being able to remove an item from the item status list. I think that would be a really good thing, because I've run into that a lot before, because I'll run a report and I'll throw all of my barcodes into item status, and there's some things that I wish I could just take away. But you can put it into an item bucket and not put those in the item bucket that you don't want in item status. It's really, the last time I heard, the developers really said that we do too much in that item status screen, and it's meant to be more ephemeral, so that we should be moving into item buckets to do a lot of our editing and some of our other things, or record buckets, depending on what you need that to do.
I mean, that makes sense, but they would really need to like expand the functionality of the item buckets then.
Well, I would agree with that too, because they did some of the functionality got taken away, I think, when we switched to the web client in item buckets, because it used to be pretty identical to item status, except for some of the circ things. So, so that's one thing to keep in mind. I see the author in my item buckets, Ruth. And I think item status is one of those that it bridges circulation and cataloging. I think that's somewhat. So there's some circulation things that really wouldn't necessarily be. Maybe there should be a cataloger item bucket and a circulation item bucket. Would that be? So you had circ function in one and cataloging function is in another.
And you could limit permissions that way, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ruth, I'm not sure how familiar you are with adding and removing columns, but if you go to the column picker, it may be one that's just not displaying for you. So if you go to that,
that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
That the
manage columns.
Yeah, and select it. It's kind of not in alphabetical order, as we all know. Maybe even manage columns. It may just not be your default if you haven't done that.
Yeah, what version are you on, Ruth? Yeah, because I'm in 3.8, and I have an item bucket up right now, and I do have author.
I definitely contact your sysadmin in that case.
Yeah, you might want to do that. Some things I know are in places that you don't expect.
Can't delete items in buckets, but get a silent field.
Okay, so it was 3.7. Difference between 3.7 and 3.8 for seeing the author. I tend to kind of blank out of my head the previous version when we go to a version, unless it's a functionality that's missing.
Of course, now we're all wanting to get into one another's client and say,
I know. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I tend to blank out of my head, even with the current version. But hey.
The last item on the bid, it's possible, yeah. And I think that there is maybe a way to alleviate that, but I don't think that it's an easy.
I think that's a library setting. Mm-hmm. So because we don't have that issue, but I think there is a setting about being able to delete the last item on a bib, but I don't remember what that setting does. It may require confirmation that you don't get in the bucket, and you do get an item status. And if I'm totally fantasizing about this, somebody let me know.
There is a library setting, delete volume with last copy, but I don't think that that's it exactly.
Okay.
It may be
That may be what it is. There may be holds on the bib. Tiffany's right. Yep. Thank you, Tiffany. Yeah. And that's actually a relatively new feature, because before, if you deleted the last item, it just automatically deleted the holds, which was not necessarily a good thing. And that counted transferring. So it didn't count when you merged records, but if you transferred an item from one record to the other, it would delete the hold if it was the last item. So that is probably that may be what is stopping you.
I wonder if it should provide some kind of at least error message. If it's just silently failing, that's
yeah.
a little
There
nefarious.
may be a bug for that, bug report for that, Launchpad report on that it fails silently. Yeah, I think the difference from being in the bib and in the item bucket. And Jennifer found the bug.
Yay, I'll put that in the notes.
And I'm going to put you put one in there, Jennifer did that. And then I'm going to put in the link for the bug that I just filed related to the bibliographic record notes.
Okay, I'll pick that up for our notes over here too then. Thanks for filing that one, Ruth.
Sure.
I got the notes. I'm done.
Any other problems the group can solve?
It's always nice when you can kind of do things on the fly.
Yeah. Especially when we have so many brains to remember things some of the others of us can't remember. Well, don't be shy to ask about a problem, because if you're having it, chances are somebody else either also has that problem, or has had that problem.
Going back to who said they couldn't see the author in the item buckets. I just checked my item bucket in a 3.8 instance, and I don't see author there either.
Am I in an item bucket maybe, or am I in a record bucket? No, I'm in an item bucket. And also get about, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your first name, so I don't want to mangle it.
Wanangwa.
Wanangwa?
Hello, Wanangwa. I miss you.
Hello. Thank you. You know, there are a lot of places where there are a lot of places where the user interface is not where it needs to be in Evergreen, and there's also people disagree about what that order should be sometimes, for example. So I think that's one of the reasons why you don't see the order. And it also has to do with when those were added sometimes. So the more recent columns added tend to be at the bottom. but I do have author on my column picker.
Yeah, I just checked mine too. I'm in 3.8 and I have author.
Mm-hmm.
And I was checking 3.7.
Benjamin makes a very welcome point. Ben Murphy, in the next version, they'll be grouped by source. So at least they'll be grouped. So there's that. And then Ben Kalish brings up something that's very dear to my heart, that where he's talking to a cataloger in the library, and they said that they're very interested in any development to help with parts being applied more consistently. And we are in the same boat. I would love to see someplace other than the holdings editor where parts can be applied, whether it be some type of thing through item status. I know that there's a bunch of things going on there, or in buckets or something like that. One of the things about parts that I try to remind my catalogers that even if the label is identical, each part in Evergreen currently has a unique ID. So that kind of makes dealing with them pretty complex if you're doing it in a batch. So just something to keep in mind as we're talking about dealing with that. But
well, yeah, I'd like to see if you're adding new items to a record that has parts, that you have something that requires you to add a part, since it's so integral to holds and can have a negative effect on holds if not all parts are assigned, and a much easier way to report on a record that has some parts assigned and that doesn't have all items assigned a part.
I will say we have at Evergreen, Indiana, just requested, we haven't received it yet, but I anticipate that we will see soon requested a quote for a project. It seems like a pretty small project, but it would be to establish 2 library settings and maybe your permission. One of them would be to disallow title level holds on a record where parts have been assigned. So that one, because
yeah.
And then the other one, gosh, it's escaping me right now. I'll look it up and I'll come back. But addressing 2 bugs that have to do with parts and part holds.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of functionality in parts that could be improved. We only get Mary saying that they have people not picking apart. We only have that issue if there's at least one item without a part label. And then you can do any part, which actually only places a hold on those parts with no label.
That actually is the other one.
Yeah.
So when that label is available, that any parts label, the other library setting would allow that label itself to be configured locally. So that if you're in a consortial setting and you want to just say any unassigned parts like it used to say, you could change it. Or if you wanted to kind of, push people away from selecting it, say, choose a part below, so that they didn't realize that was actually even an option they could select.
Right, right.
So those 2 things, we're waiting on a quote for that development right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, Rachel, you're saying that the Dewey number isn't available when you're cataloging. That is a setting, it's a library setting on which classification system you use. Is it library setting? Is it in library settings?
It is.
So you might want to check there. Tiffany, if any part placed a hold on literally any part, any item attached to that record, because the person, for whatever reason, maybe it was a group of movies that each had separate barcodes, and they didn't really care which one they got. That would be, but that's not what happens now, because if any part displays because you don't have all of your parts assigned, then it only places that hold on those without a part. It ignores those items with a part. At least that's how it is functioning in Pines. Well, and I think one of the issues that Pines is having is that a few years ago, we implemented parts with print items because of the issues around placing holds on parts for AVs, and we didn't have consortia-wide AV holds. Now we do, so we're trying to retrospectively go back and do those parts on our AV as well as our print. So it's just really scattershot.
That's been exactly our experience as well. And so we had a procedure change. So one of the things Tiffany says, but if I just had a bunch of movies on one bib, I wouldn't use parts. We actually changed our procedure so that any AV material is supposed to be assigned a part, even if it's DVD.
If the Pines policy is if you have separated out your AV so that whether it's volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, different movies under different barcodes, you need to assign a part.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that not only the libraries that have done that need to assign a part, the libraries that haven't done that need to assign a
anybody part. On that record,
right?
Because otherwise it goes into that any part
container,
conceptual container.
And we do have, like what we do, instead of saying, like Mary saying they use box set, we'll say volumes 1 through 5 or discs 1 through 5.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do have a controlled vocabulary.
Great.
Because otherwise that defeats the purpose. And I think parts is originally what volume level holds were supposed to be.
Exactly.
When the developers were developing Evergreen, they didn't understand that different libraries assign different call numbers on that same bib record. And so that they started developing the concept of the volume level, so that because they thought that everything would be named the same, everything would have the same call number, the same volume number as was the vocabulary then, so you would be able to set that for the holds. And what actuality it does is it only sets it, so if it only does the items that are attached to that volume for that library.
I immediately wanted to say bless their heart when you said that.
Yeah, it was they were kind of stunned by that, and in Pines, we don't dictate call numbers.
Right.
You can do your call number, there are times when I wish we did, but we don't. Because it would also just be a big argument between, well, I want it to be this. So, but that was
what they do in North Carolina for parts, and then I put a link in for part of our parts stuff in Evergreen, Indiana above that links into our procedures guide. But as always, but wait, there's more.
And I'm seeing some people have the inconsistent capitalization. Yes, and that's true in a lot of places in Evergreen. Is capitalization can make a difference. It does in sorting, for example.
And that's why we also have that controlled vocabulary.
Yes, yeah, and that's one of the things that I do. That I go through and correct a lot is the capitalization. I'm going to paste the link to our cataloging manual. Oops, why did that do that? Okay. I don't know why there's a little house
It's cute though.
Yeah,
Adorable.
I don't think, actually, let me find them. We have several policies around multi-part. And in that, if you want to search, and I'm now trying to, I've got to get this into better order. And this is just our, this link is to our control vocabulary and the rules around using it.
Did I miss?
Yeah. I try to enforce. How do I enforce it? I do a lot of emails, and you know, hey, you've used it this way, and it needs to be that way.
And we have a very active email community, a list community in Indiana for our catalogers, and some super catalogers that can edit all library.
Yeah, you know, and sometimes I just have to go in and change it myself because it's, you know, I know that there's some catalogers who are responsive, and some catalogers who aren't, and you know, that's, I often just go in and fix. I might send them an email too, but go in and fix it.
Kate has it. We have monthly reports. We also do that. Sometimes though, I will say I don't look at them because I know what I'm going to see, and I just don't have the emotional bandwidth to see those 100,000 records that need.
Well, and I do, and Will is pointing out that, you know, it is often difficult to enforce policies and procedures. Sometimes it helps if they're a little afraid of you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Anita makes a very good point here that our catalogers and our libraries found out pretty quickly in Indiana, if they don't assign parts, then their items are not going to be the ones that are targeted for holds and transits. And we do have a friendly competition about who is transiting the most between for resource sharing, and that directly impacts it. So yeah,
we we have on that part of our cataloging policies is, if you don't follow cataloging policy, your Cat 1 status gets taken away until you go through training. We've not had to, I think we've only had to do that once. And I wouldn't do it necessarily over getting the caps wrong in parts unless they did it every single solitary time.
Ben makes a point here. I have the impression that some libraries prefer that their items don't transit. Well, you know, that's on them. I mean, if they're, I mean, that it does go against the spirit of being in a resource sharing consortium. And I don't know if your bylaws or policies address that at all, but as long as it's not hurting those libraries that do want that to happen.
Well, I will tell you that that's one reason why you cannot reset age protection, because the developers knew there was a library in Pines, or they suspected that there was a library in Pines that was resetting in our previous ILS, setting the age protection so that their books never went out for loan. So they fixed it where you could not reset.
Your purpose for existing.
I'm very thankful you did that, Elaine, because I've absolutely worked with libraries who said, "Oh, it's okay. I just put age protection on it, so you can't get it anymore." I'm like, you know, it's not going to work that way. And I go, no, you can just think that. Fine.
I do. You know, we have at least one library that I suspect, if it's an out of system hold, they don't pull it. And since I put holds on items that, you know, I'm requesting that specific item, I can tell it.
Yeah. We have had a couple libraries, and we have 130 library systems, so a couple is like pretty negligible over the years that have done exactly that, not pulled it, and it got to the point where there was a conversation: if you don't want to be part of our resource sharing consortium, you need to leave. and they didn't. Nobody has left, so they figured it out.
Yeah. Well, I have an email to that director and have not received a response from her, so we'll see. Any rate, I think, you know, one of the things too, several people mentioned reports. I don't do a report for the entire Pines Consortium. There's no way I could keep up with that. But a lot of catalogers, lead catalogers, do reports for their own system to check for items that are incorrectly, that there's something incorrect about. If a question went by that we haven't addressed, if you wouldn't mind highlighting it again.
I wanted to, it sounds right, to revisit the whole author not showing up in the item bucket thing.
Yeah.
Michelle Morgan gave us the answer. She says that, where did I put the answer?
Okay.
I found the answer. Okay, I've lost the answer. But that it was fixed in 373.
Ah.
And I'm looking at 372 right now. So yeah, here it is. I found it. I'm highlighting in the notes. So thanks, Michelle. That it was added in 373 and 381. It gave it back. Mm-hmm. So
that's interesting. We're running 371. So was it broken in 372?
I don't remember when it went away, but it we did lose it.
Oh,
we lost a number.
3.8.0. Okay.
Yeah, I think there were a number of things in the columns that went away for several of the interfaces. Item buckets in particular, I think, lost a lot. And Tiffany actually went back in and figured out how to re-add a lot of them.
And I will say, just to take your own 3.8, if you want to, I'm just taking a moment here, I'll leave it the other way, but check your test system, because I think your test system is updated to 381, just because you're the only one in that specific situation I can think of right now, and see if it looks different than your production system, and let us know. That'll tell us if that worked or not. Okay.
Ooh, I would love to know the creator of parts.
Yeah.
That would be really nice.
I know one of the big advocates was Kathy, and I am too. If it worked as we wanted it to work, it does work as we want it to. It's just next to impossible to get 300, 400 cataloging staff people across the consortium to all apply things as they should and have that same level of knowledge and also drive to make that, to do it correctly.
Yeah, I've been on a quest to try to get people to quit adding the circ as mark, because it's not necessarily when you use circ modifiers.
Right.
At one time they said it was, but it's not. So you don't need to use it, and it can mess your circulation up. That's and some people are getting it, but a lot of people, they don't want to change their templates working. It's got it in their template. They're
sorry,
not. Sorry,
Elaine. I missed what you're talking about. What?
Setting circ as mark.
So, okay.
When you use circ modifiers, if you don't use circ modifiers, you do need to set that for some items.
Tiffany says, "Is there a bug out there for the park creator already?" I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is. Thanks, past Tiffany. Nice.
Did you put it in?
You did.
Yeah. I hate that one. I think there should be a bug report for this, and I've already done it.
Yeah, you thought that once before.
Are you hiding the circus mark, Jennifer? That would be actually an excellent idea. Although if it's already in there, if it's in their template, so it still would be added. And I do hate to have people mess too much with their templates, because templates can, in a web client, templates can just fail for no apparent reason. So I hate to have them touch it.
And just to kind of circle back real quick, because Jennifer had said something to me about our test server. So I did check our test server to see if I could test that, but where our test is on 3.8.0 still. So
Still there.
I can't test that.
Yeah, I didn't have a quick one I could check either, so I've said. Okay, thanks. I'll follow up.
When there's a lot of things that I kind of wish there was in the parts interface for people when you're going back retrospectively and adding parts, because it can be, when you're having to scroll down that whole list. And I don't know, I don't know if I can't remember now if I've done the report that you can only add as your catalog, if you got that long list, you can only type in one new one in the list. It causes the save to fail if you do more than one new.
Right. Yeah. Are you talking about
parts assignment?
Parts assignment through the holdings editor.
Yeah.
And you're wanting to add the same label.
Yes.
Well, you got, yeah.
That was
Here, you might see.
That was a bug I created.
Oh, okay. Because you might have, like I might have, when I'm starting assigning parts, I realized there were like 2 parts I forgot to create, but I can't create them on the fly as I go. I can only create one on the fly.
You can create, I thought you could create multiple parts, but if you have 2 copies that both need the same part,
that's correct.
Adding a new part, only the first one gets the part, because
exactly
the one can't get the part because it hasn't been created yet.
Yep.
Well, I find it if I try to create multiple parts, different parts across multiple libraries, it fails. It won't even save. So even if if I just need to create volume 1, if I put volume 1 in more than one library, it fails. So I guess that's yours. But if I try to do volume 1 and then somewhere else volume 2, it fails. The save fails.
I have not tried to do it across libraries, so that's not true. I have tried, and it has worked. I'm wondering, it's kind of one of those idiosyncratic things that you do at a higher level. So
yeah. Because I'm most of our catalogers can't assign parts to somebody else's item, but I can assign. And that's what that's one of my cleanup things I'm doing. So I noticed that. So most people not, and that's one of the reasons why some of these things I haven't reported, because they're kind of a corner case.
Yeah.
Tiffany, did you have a question, comment?
Kind of, sort of. So I had said it in the chat, and I'm hoping that the silence on it was not just like, yes, Tiffany, this is dumb. But Ben Kalish was talking about parts being validated. So is it too far to have something like an administration page for parts where, like, at the consortium level, you can define what the vocabulary is?
No,
and then
not too much.
and then when like the catalogers go into the parts page to create a new one, they would select from the drop down, it's a volume, and you have to use the phrasing of volume, and then it's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a drop down or whatever. I don't know if that's too much.
The only issue I have with that is I don't have time to do that.
No, I mean.
Yeah, see, I mean, so that's just a selfish thing.
No, I mean, like, one time you would set up volume. This is the entry for volume, and then from there you don't have to do anything. It's just like volume is spelled like capital VOL, and that's the selection that they can use. They don't.
And then have a free
anything after
field
that.
to fill in.
Yeah, it's like a drop-down box for them.
So you would have a prefix for your part, basically.
Yeah,
so
like
you
they
would
can
set
only
your
choose,
prefix.
Yeah, they could only choose like predefined words. I can't think of words.
Yeah, as long as it's not, I have to create on a consortial 11, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4.
No, I just meant
yeah.
like the prefix would be VOL. That's a drop down. It's a volume, and then they select volume, and then they put in 1, 2, 3, whatever. Not that the whole thing would be.
So basically, we would load our control vocabulary somewhere.
Yeah.
And then, so you might have a very large drop down that you would have to go through, but you would only be able to choose from that drop down list.
Will says, I seem to recall the last time I added parts to a record, there were already set options available to choose from. It's hard to say, Will, where those were established. They may be, and Ben is in here, Benjamin Morphy is in here, whether those are established on that record. So there's that. The state government has a huge variety of monographic parts. So I'm like, oh, wow. Ugh.
Whoa.
I guess what I'm thinking of is like when the person who first creates the part, like their pop-up that comes on the modal or whatever, they have multiple values to fill out, but the actual part that's created is just one value.
Right.
Does that make sense? So like you wouldn't have, you know, like creating volume 1 and then creating volume 2 or whatever. Anyway, I don't know what I'm saying.
Well,
unless you're using parts for serials, in which case, I mean, that may be where you are adding more, but that's.
Yeah, that's and that because now the way it is when you go in, I think I'm understanding what you say. So when you go in to the tab where you create your part, you have, and you want to do volume 1, you see that drop down menu, and you scroll through to, you find volume, you use that, hit volume 1, and then you do, and I would say that it should populate from then on in your create.
Yeah, like it would just be that a part of volume 1 that other people can select.
Right, and that is the way it's structured now. That would make that a little difficult. Is your entire part label is one text field. So if you have volume 1, section 3, part 12, you know which a lot of academic serials can get really complex like that. That you wouldn't be able to do the way it's currently structured. So you would actually need to have different subfields in your part assignment that to be able to do that for complex serials. But I still can see where that might be a way to go to control that vocabulary.
Okay. I just wanted to, it was easier to say than to try and type. So that was all I had.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good idea. I think that's part of the kind of usability things we could do. And I think Will, somebody else has probably created the parts for that record prior to you doing it, and that's why you're seeing the parts. At least that's how it would work in Evergreen and Pines.
Oh, parts.
There, yeah.
I see the volume part, the parts that start with some variation of volume. You might be able to do that with these prefixes, or you know, however you want to do it. But the hard part is with magazines, where we had standard date formats. But people would use upper or lower case. They would spell out the month. They would do the month, like JAN period instead of JAN. And so we got multiple parts.
It would be lovely to be able to utilize the functionality of the serials module. Well, somehow, because I mean, it has that standard format for naming the serial,
right,
that's in there, and if that could be translated into a part, that would be. Why don't people use serials? Because they're used to using the holdings editor.
Well, or they still use an old-fashioned, paper method of checking it in. I've tried on several occasions to get serials implemented in Pines, and it just hasn't worked. So, for a variety of reasons, some internal, some external.
And it's a little love too. The module is module.
Yeah, I was going to say for librarians that are used to using serials or have the bandwidth to learn another interface and another workflow for a type of thing, it works good, but it's not really particularly user friendly for people who haven't used it before. I'm not Evergreen, but serials in general, and who are coming from paper.
Yeah,
as Elaine said, where you've had a card, you just check off a thing on the card and say, hey, it arrived, and then you get it into the system. It is way more complicated than that, and they're like, well, why would I make my life more complicated?
Yeah, it's the predictions. I think that's what really just trips people up and spend that much time.
But once that's set up,
right,
it's then the last session I went to about serials, and once it's set up, it's even easy for circ staff to check in your serial and that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
And Elizabeth makes a good point. The serials vocabulary itself is confusing for not just for you.
Well, serial records themselves could be confusing.
That's so true.
But we haven't implemented serial, so I'm afraid I can't answer any of those questions.
If you use monograph parts, you can put holds on them.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to use monograph. Well, okay. I'm confusing things. No. Okay. Take back what I said.
You still do apply parts to them.
You still do, right. You still have to do that even when you're checking that. See, I'm trying to think, am I talking about the serials module or am I cataloging it like a monograph now? But no, you're right.
Even as a serial, though, I think that you apply a part to it to place a hold on it. Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anita has a question about group holds. Apparently, you can't restrict them to one library. I've not done group holds. That's a circ function in Pines, so I'm not real familiar.
Because group holds is new, right? So Ruth, I think that's right. I think that it's just going to follow whatever your regular policies are.
Yes. We don't always know what everybody's doing in our libraries, so they need to email us so we can find a solution.
Yes. Yeah, I'm fairly certain it should honor should is the word there. It should honor existing policies.
But if you don't have age protection on serials, it's going to allow holds through your consortium. So the answer might be age protection on.
And hold groups just places regular holds.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not realize that. It's not going to even do it on those serial holds.
So it's just a title hold?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So that would not be, so then you wouldn't be able to use it for things like serials.
Not group holds, no.
No. That also means that if you're for whatever reason you need group holds on, say, a graphic novel that's on one record, you might not be able to do that.
But also keeping in mind, group holds does utilize buckets, and that's a great way to, buckets in general, user buckets are a great way to keep track of those people that you need to place those holds if you need to do it an alternate way.
Yeah, and and another issue to me with like when you transfer a hold, you can only transfer title level hold. You can't transfer any other level hold.
Yeah. Jennifer Pringle says for serials, maybe routing lists. I don't know anything about routing lists.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
I want to know more. So the other question is, how are other people using group holds? We already have on order. We could put it on library stuff.
I think Pines libraries are using it primarily for book groups, book clubs, rather.
And that's kind of the way that it's been promoted so far. I think that there's some extended functionality that libraries would like to see with it, that maybe is author-based or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They have people on standing holds for certain authors.
And I think, Ruth, that's a good point too, is it's a standing hold so that, people don't actually have to place them. So I know you can place holds on order records, but just knowing that you wouldn't have to do that at all, your staff does it for you every time there's a new, I'm not going to call
something that meets that criteria.
Right. Something new in the series, that kind of thing.
I'm not familiar with the functionality at all since it's not something I encounter.
Just a reminder, that we have just.
We only have just a little over 5 minutes. So, any other questions, issues?
When is the next meeting?
Jennifer, when is the next meeting?
Tuesday, July 12th,
Oh,
2 p.m.
And if you're not a member of the listserv, where should you go to sign up for it?
You should go to this place I'm going to put in the chat box momentarily.
And a big shout out to the Cataloging Interest Group for their format of their page, which I just copied for the Reports Interest Group. Yay, thanks.
You're most welcome.
Yeah, and just the list is not necessarily high volume. I mean, it can be if we're discussing a particular issue. So don't worry that you're going to get your email flooded. And I want somebody ask in another session, I can't remember now which it was, how to join the interest groups. And I just want to reiterate, we don't have a secret password or anything like that. You just come to the meetings, participate in the listserv, and then you're part of the group.
Elizabeth, I think that you need to do a presentation on this, your automatic holds. Just throwing that out there.
Absolutely. That's fabulous.
Yeah, I can ask the library that does it if they would be interested. I helped set it up when I worked there, so I just don't want to step on their toes. So I will definitely ask them.
Elizabeth, is it okay if I put it in the notes, or you prefer to ask for permission first before I do that?
I've been telling people about it elsewhere, so I think they'd be fine with that.
Okay, great.
Which group would this be more for? Sir?
I think Cirque, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea for us catalogers to be aware of this kind of thing too. So,
oh yeah, I mean this is definitely across the library.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll check with them. If not, I'm sure I can put something together.
Is it truly automatic, or is it something?
We use they use the group holds function.
Okay, so somebody is actually pushing that button essentially on the back end, but it seems automatic to the patron. Awesome.
Yeah, they have reports that come out every week on new items that are added to the catalog, so they kind of scour the list for
and Elizabeth,
stuff.
Is that similar to what you're doing in your library consortium or library?
This is just for this
one.
I'm
sorry, Elizabeth Thompson.
Oh, sorry.
She said I should have done a lightning talk, and I think that you guys are doing a similar thing.
So you have to have the authors preset in this list in order, so somebody couldn't go in and say, I want David Weber or something like that.
But it's cool though. I mean,
It is. I immediately thought, well, how do you get the right format of the name? But if you pre-populate it, then you're going to.
I love it. Cool.
Okay.
So, any final words from Jennifer or Elaine?
Just come join us. And hopefully we will have that in person next year.
put all the
Cool.
good karma out into the world so that we'll be together next year.
Yes. However it is your way to put the good karma.
Developers update will be in 2 minutes in the keynote session track. So let's go hear what they're building for us.
Yes.
And if there's questions that you want to ask of anybody and that you didn't get asked, you can either put it on the list. You can email me privately. I'm sure Jennifer doesn't mind answering. So just if you were too shy to ask.
Although apparently we can only email Elaine for 1 more year.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
This was a great session, guys, and everybody come to Authority Fest tomorrow.
Oh yes, thanks,
yes. Thanks for that reminder.
Really? You don't want to miss it.
Okay. Have a great day. Thank you.
See you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Elaine. Bye.
Thank you.